Hey everyone, how's everyone doing today? Let's see what we got here. Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Got to turn that down, just monitoring it. So Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live, weekly news wrap-up. I got to change that. It says weekly new. Let me just change that real quick. Weekly news wrap-up, Final Cut Pro and related news. I'm going to be talking about that today. There's a couple of things that happened this week as far as Final Cut Pro goes. But first off, everybody who's watching, let me know where you're from, what part of the Final Cut Pro world you're watching as you log on and watch this. So the main thing coming up, 2020, we're pretty sure we're going to be seeing... Let me see what we got here. He says, and again, a different background. Hello, Richard. Lutz says, that's right, it's a different background. Got some different backgrounds I'll be trying out. See the ones that I like. Justine Paula Robillard. Hi, Richard. Good morning to you and the viewers. Justine's watching from South Africa. That much I know. Peter Krohn says hello from Germany. What time is it over there in Germany right now, Peter? I think it's 2:30 in the afternoon, maybe. I think Greenwich Mean Time is like 2:30, so. Tomasz says hello from Poland. Lutz says, hello from Germany, moving out to Canada on Monday. That's a big move, man, from Germany to Canada. Lutz says 15:41, which is 3 in the afternoon, right. 3 in the afternoon. Justine says it's 16:41 in South Africa. Very, very interesting. I try to time these so I can get a lot of people that aren't in the U.S. to watch. That's why I do them early in the morning. You know, unfortunately, that makes the people on the West Coast, Pacific time, that's like 6:30 over there. So I'm not sure if they're even awake. Does LA even wake up at 6:30 in the morning? I don't even know. What do you guys think? I was in LA a couple years ago, Hollywood, for the Off the Track documentary, which I co-edited with Brad Olson. And that was my first time in Hollywood. It was interesting for sure. I went along the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which was a little dirtier than I thought it was going to be. I'm not sure why. I expected it to be more clean. But it was a little dirtier than I expected. But it was certainly was interesting. I enjoyed it. I stayed about a couple of miles away, and I took an Uber there. It took them like, I think 15 minutes to get through traffic to get to the Walk of Fame. And I went to the Hard Rock Cafe and stuff and had lunch. So anybody that's watching, we got Germany, we got Poland, we have South Africa watching at this point. Justine says, been in news TV studios for 22 years. 3:30 a.m. is nothing. 5:30 is standard. There you go. John Matthews says, is that a lav mic you have on? Sounds great, or is just out of shot? It's out of shot. It's right, just out of shot. It's right here. It's actually a Neumann TLM 103. It's a really, really nice studio microphone. I keep it just out of the shot if I can. Sometimes I can't, but usually I can just keep it out of the, it's close. Let me pull a little closer here. Yeah, it's a real nice microphone, the Neumann TLM 103. I really like it a lot. It's my favorite. And then I have it running through the Apollo Twin X interface, which is my favorite audio interface for microphones and stuff. John Matthews says it's lovely. And Tomas says, any news about new version of FCPX? Well, any news? Here's the news. We're going to see Final Cut Pro 10.5 in 2020. That's the news. Now, when in 2020 is the question. Now, I think, and I've been saying this for probably a year or better, since it didn't come out, there was no announcement of a new version of Final Cut Pro at the FCPX Creative Summit last fall, that it's going to be out at NAB this year. Now, last year, the Final Cut Pro team and Apple skipped NAB. Yes, they were around in discrete groups talking to developers and stuff. I know that I'm talking about a presentation like they did in 2017 and 2018, probably 2016 as well. They skipped last year because there was no announcement for Final Cut Pro, right? Is that what the deal was? As far as the microphone goes, so I have an Apollo Twin X. I just got this one. I can run a lot of plugins in real time. So I have tape emulation going on there, and I have analog tube EQ, analog tube compressors and stuff. Justine says, been watching Travel Channel here, and they swear 6 ways to Sunday that they will catch on film a live Sasquatch. I think they've already caught them down in Washington, right? The politicians, that's what they are down there, fooling around, wasting time, wasting our money. Yeah. But anyway, as far as new version of Final Cut Pro, that is 10.5, which should be out. Listen, it's 24 months. No, it's 25, 26 months right now since Final Cut Pro 10.5. Let me just check this. Since Final Cut Pro 10.5, here we go. I'll pull this up. FCPRadio.com. I'm keeping track of when Final Cut Pro 10.4 was released. 2 years, 1 month, 17 days. So 24, 25, almost 26 months since we saw version 10.4, which was released. That's how long it's been. Long time. Long time. Now, here's the other interesting thing that I just noticed this over the holidays. Logic Pro 10.4 is also, at this point, 2 years old. It had its birthday a couple of days ago. Logic 10.4 came out 2 years ago. So both of Apple's main Pro apps are at this point over 2 years old. So Justine says, I figure NAB with full presentation. So that's interesting what's going on with NAB. Has anybody heard anything about Final Cut Pro at NAB yet? It's still early. It's only January. Well, it's tomorrow, February the 1st. In the past, FCPWorks, let me pull those guys up. FCPWorks, let me see something. Where are we? Here we go, FCPWorks. In the past, FCPWorks had an announcement February the 15th, as you can see, 2018, they announced news about, let's see what it actually says. So Final Cut Pro 10 will be at a number of events at NAB 2018 in Las Vegas. There are a couple that FCPWorks are involved with. First, Apple itself. See, Apple itself. People think that Apple hasn't been there, but they absolutely have. Apple itself will present the latest workflows and case studies about FCPX at Post Without Limits. This event will take place Monday, April the 9th, 2018 from 5 to 6:30 at the Las Vegas Convention Center and room S19. So that was the last time that Apple was there. They were not there last year in 2019. There was no update at the FCPX Creative Summit either last year, so both those major events, there was no update for Final Cut Pro. So that is what happened the last time they were there. They absolutely do absolutely do present at NAB. They have. I expect them. But anyway, the point, I guess, here is this was announced on February the 15th in 2018. So I expect if Apple is going to be around NAB this year, showing off a new version of Final Cut Pro, that would be version 10.5 probably, right? That's what I expect. It's been, a long time. So if they are indeed going to be at NAB, I'm sure the plans are being made now, organized and stuff. That room is actually a room that was used, that Future Media Concepts let them use. They could expand it depending on how many people they had. It went from 150 to 300, something like that. They could expand it if they got a big crowd. And they always got a big crowd. So OGDC, hi Rich, I predict a stagger release this year between FCPX 10.5 and a newer version of Logic Pro 10. They sometimes stagger, but you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they both came out at the same time next year. I would not be surprised at all. Let me just check something. Here we go. I have an actual, let me just pull this up. Theater mode. Here is what it looks like at the one in 2017.
Before we finish up, as all of you probably know in this room, we always like to talk about various milestones that we've reached over the last 5.5 years since we first introduced Final Cut Pro 10. So it's a very great pleasure for all of us at Apple today to be able to announce for the first time here in this meeting that we've now reached 2 million seats. Also worth mentioning that we went much faster from 1 million to 2 million seats than from 0 to 1 million. So not only is it gratifying to reach that kind of customer base, but also to see how rapidly that customer base is growing.
Okay, so that was 2017, NAB 2017. They announced 2 million seats. In 2018, let me just shut this off. Oh, wait a second. In 2018, they announced 2.5 million seats. That was the last time that they were at NAB. Now, that video has about almost 8,500 views, I think, the 2 million seat one. They don't allow filming in there because they're not set up for filming. I mean, the lighting and stuff is not really set up for filming. So I got that one in, and I got a picture of the one after that when they announced 2.5 million seats. But anyway, we'll see in February. I'm thinking February, we're going to find out if Apple is indeed going to be at NAB. If there's no announcement during February, I'd say the odds are not that great, but I really think they're going to. I think 10.5 is going to be out, or they're going to do a preview of it or whatever, and I think Logic will be out. It's not that Logic has ever been at NAB. I don't think Logic has ever been presented there from anybody. I just don't remember that. So one of the other things about NAB is, what is Blackmagic up to? What are they going to present this year? I'd really like to see a 4K, 6K with the swivel screen instead of that fixed screen. I'd be much more interested than the way it is now with the fixed screen. Mix Wizard said, "Morning, Richard. I'm finally able to catch a live show, checking in from Northern Virginia." How you doing, Mix Wizard? Glad you could join us. Thank you. We got some more news to go over here with Final Cut Pro and Post things that are related, both of them. So let's do one here. So Double Take by Filmic Pro. If you remember, Filmic Pro, which is one of the Pro app apps you can buy for the iPhone came out. It was at the Apple presentation when they had the iPhone presentation, and they showed a multicam screen on the iPhone 11 where you have 4 separate, each lens can be seen on screen at the same time, and you can pick any of those 2 to record. They first said they'd be out at the end of December. They didn't make that deadline. Then they said it'd be out at the end of January. Well, they didn't have it for Final Cut excuse me, for the iPhone for Filmic Pro. So instead, because people are waiting, they put out a separate app called Double Take. Let's pull that up here real quick. So this is what it is. Double Take by Filmic Pro. It is a very, very cool app. As you can see, you can see all 4 of your cameras, including your selfie. So the 3 front-facing ones, and then your selfie camera at the same time. And you can record any 2 of those just by tapping on it. It's a very cool app. I really like it. This is not the full version. The full version will be free for anybody who owns Filmic Pro. I've known Filmic Pro for years. I've used it. So the full version, which will be out with Filmic Pro, they're saying now and sometime later this year, maybe the spring, maybe for NAB. I would presume they're going to try to really get at it for NAB. Everybody likes to get things out for NAB, right? I know I do. I expect them to have things out. We're still waiting on Final Cut Pro XML export from LumaFusion. As far as I know, I don't think they've released that yet, but it should be out for NAB as well. So, has anybody heard anything about NAB and Final Cut Pro news yet? I've got a few feelers out. I haven't heard anything specific, but I am expecting it. So one of the cool things about, let's do this. One of the cool things about, let me see if I can pull that up. One of the cool things about Double Take by Filmic Pro is, well, it's very cool. First off, it's free. It's a very cool app. It's free. So you really can't beat that, can you? Being free is incredible. So it's like a preview of what's coming in Filmic Pro. You know, like, for example, a couple things that Filmic Pro is going to have that this does not have. You have no way to access any audio controls. So, and you don't really have, the sophistication of Filmic Pro, of course. That's not there yet. This is a free preview version. I'll be interested to see if they end up keeping this version available once it's available in Filmic Pro. They might do that. So that's a very cool kudos to the people at Filmic Pro for bringing that out. I've used it a few times. You can do the 4-screen. You can see the 4 separate cameras, the 4 lenses on the on the iPhone Pro, and you can pick any of the 2. Now you can record two distinct clips, and those clips are 1080p, not 4K. All 4 cameras on the iPhone Pro are actually for 4K. There's 3 on the back, and then, of course, there's 1 on the front. All 4 of them are 4K, but right now there's a restriction in Apple, for whatever reason, that you can only record in 1080p, so those streams are 1080p. That's not a restriction of the app. That is a restriction of Apple. So that'll be coming in Filmic Pro later this year, free for Filmic Pro owners at this point. That's what they said, so that's very cool. So here's another new app that came out this week. Let's see what this one is. Let me pull this up real quick. This is an interesting app. I've been using another version of something that's like this. This one seems pretty sophisticated. It's called ArcX. ArcX. Take control of your FCP media, Final Cut Pro media. It is $74.99. And what it does it lets you archive all your media in Final Cut Pro. Let's see what it says. Easy media backup for your Final Cut Pro projects. Safely archives your Final Cut Pro projects, backs all up the elements in your editing, including video and audio files, graphics, image files, fonts, third-party plugins. So that's a new one that came out this week. Now, here's what I've been using for many, many years. I've been using backups for Final Cut Pro for lots and lots of years. I had the guy that developed this. He's just a genius, backup genius. And this is $18, $17.99, also on the App Store. I've been using this for a long time. Remember, you used to be able to do Command S to save a project in Final Cut Pro? With backups for Final Cut Pro, you can do just that. You can just manually trigger a backup at any point, just like you used to be able to. It makes snapshots. You can back up your media the same way. You can back up your media. You can back up your projects. You can back up events. You can label them and all kind of things. So that is $18, $17.99, I think. Like I said, I've had it for years. So, and there's actually, the developer of that has been on Final Cut Pro Radio. You can go there if you want to listen to him talk about it. So what else do we have? Oh, here's something else we have. It's interesting. So Apple applied for a patent for a design for all-in-one computer with integrates both its keyboard and screen into a single curved sheet of glass. I found this on Twitter. Net Jagers, looks like it is. So it looks like all one curved piece of glass with the keyboard and the screen. Whether we ever see that or not, who in the heck knows? I have no idea if that'll ever come to fruition. So, I guess everybody's excited about if we see, well, we will see Final Cut Pro 10.5 in 2020, for sure. Mix Wizard says, I just started using the Loop Deck CT with Final Cut Pro. I will start a series of videos showing how to use the Loop Deck CT in order to edit in FCPX. I will get my first video uploaded sometime tomorrow. That's very cool. Send me the link and I'll post it on Twitter. So I have a few manual things that I do. I have a jog shuttle wheel I use in Final Cut Pro. What is it? Shuttle Pro 2 or something. And I'm so used to doing frame by frame with the shuttle wheel. I like that better than tapping the arrows. Let me pull it up here. I know you guys know about this one. This is an old one. This is an old version. It's not, so it has the shuttle wheel. It can be programmed to just jog shuttle forward and backward. That's what I use it for more than anything, but I also have a couple of the other buttons programmed. The problem is sometimes it connects, sometimes it doesn't connect. I don't know why. It's pretty old technology. It's USB connected, of course. So we'll see how that works out. If they ever update the drivers for it, I don't know. I don't have any idea. So what else do we have going on this week in Final Cut Pro news? So here's something that I've kind of knew about, but I looked into it more this week. So the Mac Pro uses 1,280 watts maximum, 1,280 watts. That's on a U.S. electric circuit. That's about 10.6 amps. So that's maximum and probably sustained from what I understand. Let's just go look at that real quick. Because here it is. So that's maximum, 1,280 watts at 108 to 125 volts. So the standard voltage in the U.S. is 120 plus or minus. So 1,280 watts into 120 volts is around 10.6 amps. Now, a standard circuit in the United States is 15 amp circuit. If I ever build another office space or build another house, I built my own house in the mid 80s next door to where I am now. And one of the things that I do is I put in 20 amp circuits. A lot of the rooms, I'd have at least one 20 amp circuit. The lights can be 15 amp. A lot of normal things can be 15 amp, but I always want to have a 20 amp circuit in any of the major rooms. It's much, kitchen, of course, you have some appliances like the refrigerator and all that requires a lot. But so in my office where I am right now, this is my upstairs studio. I have two separate circuits. I went the other day and I turned off circuit breakers to see which receptacles were on which circuit. So I have 1, 2, 3 on one circuit, and that includes the overhead lights all on one circuit. Then I have another circuit, another receptacle by the door that was the only one in this room. So I switched my wiring around. So now I have the Mac Pro, which uses 10.6, which can use 10.6 amps. It doesn't use that continuously, but it can use 10.6 amps by itself on that one circuit. So the Mac Pro is by itself on that one circuit. The rest of the peripherals I have a dozen or more other plug-ins that are plugged into the other two circuits. So if you guys, I know I've had a, let me see if I have it here. I think I do. Somewhere around here, I have a SSD, but I don't see it. I don't see it around. Let me just see if I can find it. Well, I can't find it. But I have one of the Samsung T3s, or they also make a T5 and now a T7 SSD, and I had a Thunderbolt 3 NVMe external SSD, and it kept unmounting. It would just randomly unmount. During the day, 3 or 4 times, 5, 6, 7 times, it would just get the pop-up window where it said unmounted, unmounted, unmounted. Then it would remount, then unmount, then remount. So I sent that back to the manufacturer. I said, this is not working. I can't depend on it. And I've read reports recently that the Samsung and other external USB Thunderbolts drives are doing the exact same thing. Now I have a LaCie, which I bought I had my old iMac, and that's an external Thunderbolt 3 NVMe. I think it's NVMe. I don't know. It's kind of big. Never has it ejected randomly. So they can make them so they don't randomly eject. I've heard reports that it's Bluetooth. Causing this. I don't know. You can't depend on those drives if they're going to eject randomly. I mean, in the middle of a project, all of a sudden it ejects. It could corrupt libraries, could do all kinds of things. I don't know what the problem is. The manufacturer that I sent mine back to kept saying it's Apple. Something to do with Apple. Well, my LaCie doesn't do it. So it's not Apple necessarily. It could be. But my LaCie SSD does not eject, never has. I've had it for probably 6 months or 8 months. Not one time has it ejected on its own. Now, I also saw a report yesterday that somebody said their internal NVMe drive randomly ejected. So that's interesting. I've never seen that before. So what do we have here? Canon. Let's see. This will certainly be interesting if it's true. Canon EOS R5 leaked 8K, 30p, 4K, 120p, in-body image stabilization 5 stops, IBIS, and more. Now this is semi-confirmed. Some of the specs came from Canon. that would certainly be interesting. I'm not a Canon user. I have one Canon camera, but it's a HDV camera, uses tape, so. Full-frame mirrorless camera called the EOS R5. I'm sure it would be very, very expensive if that turns out to be true. I'm still waiting on the GH6 to see what the specs are for that, if it ever shows up. So let me just check on one more thing. Let me just check a couple of things while I got you guys here. So I'm still waiting to hear about any kind of news on Final Cut Pro events at NAB. It's still early, plenty early. That's for sure. My name's Richard Taylor, by the way. I didn't introduce myself, in case you don't know that. So let's see what we have here. Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live, weekly news wrap-up. We're almost wrapped up for the day. I figured I'd jump on here today just to do a quick recap of anything that happened during the week. I'll do this when I get the time during the week. How many of you are looking forward to 10.5? I guess most of us are, right? But I'm also very curious what Apple has up their sleeve, because I haven't seen any reports of anything specifically. So if you guys are on Facebook, you can come on over to facebook.com/RichardTaylorTV. Don't send a friend request. Just you can follow along there and you'll get the announcement of when I go live. If you want to do that, also you go to FCPX.tv. Right now I have up 60 different articles about the Mac Pro over there. Use the HTTPS. I'm not sure what's going on there exactly, but it goes to one of my other domains right now. And what else was I going to talk about? Something else? I don't remember. So if there's not any other questions, I'm going to be winding up here yet. Winding up. Like I said, we want to congratulate Filmic Pro for putting out a double take and not making us wait any longer. I know I've been Here's a good question. What the heck did the FCPX team talk about at the summit? Let's just say there was no Final Cut Pro update around the summit, which, listen, of course Apple can release Final Cut Pro, a new update, especially a major update like 10.5 is probably going to be, anytime they want. Okay? Everybody knows that. Anytime they want. However, they released 10.2 at NAB 2015. They released 10.3 at the FCPX Summit in 2016. They released 10.4 at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. They gave us a public demo at the summit, and then they released it in December. Once again, 10.4.4, which was the last major feature update to Final Cut Pro, not a full number update, just a feature update. It's like a mid-level feature update, was at the Creative Summit in 2018. In 2019, nothing at NAB. There was no update around NAB. And in 2019, there was nothing at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. They had released 10.4.7 about 30 days earlier than the summit. That's when they incorporated the Metal 2 update, which was a big deal. I understand that. The Metal 2 update was a big deal. A lot of work went in the plumbing to do that. But that's the only thing we've had since 10.4.4. And that's not really a feature update. That's more performance enhancement, which are really important, absolutely important. But it was, 2019 was a very, very boring year for Final Cut Pro. It was just boring. So I'm thinking they're going to make up for it when 10.5 comes out. It has to, 10.5 has to be a big, big update. Both, and it's interesting, both Final Cut Pro 10 and Logic Pro 10, both are due for 10.5. So as far as your question, what the heck did the FCPX team talk about at the summit? Well, you know as much as anybody, there was no update for Final Cut Pro around the summit this year. So people say, well, they can do it whenever they want to. Of course they can. But the last three, 10.2, 10.3, 10.4, and 10.4.4 have all been around either NAB or the Creative Summit. So let's see if 10.5 keeps that same pattern and comes out at NAB, around NAB. So I think that's just about it. Oh, I know what I was going to show you. Let me do one more thing. This is for anybody who wants to if anybody has a Mac Pro or they want to talk about the Mac Pro, we have a Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Mac Pro 2019. So we have a Facebook group over there. This is about the Mac Pro 2019. You don't have to have one necessarily, but you might be interested. Ask questions before you. There's us over there. Before you buy, you can come over there for that reason. But it's mainly a discussion about the Mac Pro. A little bit about other things, but mainly about the Mac Pro. Let me just take that down a little bit. There we go. So you can join the group, facebook.com/groups/Mac Pro 2019, in case you're interested. I'm sure FCPX got exciting when the Mac Pro went live. Exciting in which way? It's the same as everybody else got for the Mac Pro. I expect big things for 2019. For 2020. It's the start of a decade. There's no guarantee that that Final Cut Pro is going to go to 10.9 and then to 11. They could go to anywhere they want to at any point. They're up at 10. They're up to 10.4.8. So could they go to 10.4.9? Yeah, they could. But that wouldn't be a big update. That would be whatever bug fix, whatever they do with those intermittent in-between updates. I'm talking about a full number update, 10.4 to 10.5. That's the big jump, and that's right now at 25 months, going on 26 months between those two. The only other, the average time of updates between 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 10.1 to 10.2, 10.2 to 10.3, 10.3 to 10.4 have been 14 months, 16 months, and 18 months. That's the average on the last bunch of them. Right now we're at 25, going on 26 months. They've had a lot of time. There must be something big happening. The only other time there was a big time between full number updates was between 10.0 and 10.1, and I think that might have been 30 months, 2.5 years between those two. But if you remember, that was a big update because 10.0 had events and projects separate folders in the Finder, if you remember that. They were separate. So then 10.1 came out, there was a unified library. Everything was inside of one single library. Lutz says, can you confirm or deny you saw a FCPX 10.5 preview at the summit? Let me take the second part of that question. Don't get in trouble. Let's leave it at that. Listen, if we had seen, typically they previewed 10.4 They previewed 10.4 at the summit. It was a public preview, and it came out in December of that year. So we didn't see, there was no update to Final Cut Pro. There still hasn't been any update besides 10.4.8, which was a minor bug fix update since the summit came and went. We had a great time at the summit like we always do. We got to see all of our friends there, a lot of people. Eugene Lawrence said that Apple will present. Have you heard that Apple will present at the Vlog University tomorrow? Actually, Lauren, they changed that. Apple is not presenting. What is that called? Vlog. So Apple is not presenting. Let me pull this up for you. This is what they changed it to. They do this all the time. It's not unusual. Sessions, let me pull that up. Program. Now it says this is what it says now. A discussion with iJustine, Ezerick, and other content creators moderated by Apple. Moderated by Apple. Apple is not doing a presentation. And this would not be the place for them to do any kind of a rollout anyway, because this is not, you don't go to Apple campus. You don't meet the Final Cut Pro team at Vlog University. Some of them might be around there, but this is not a Final Cut Pro specific event. There's all kinds of content creators there. iJustine's been there a few times. It looks very well organized by our friends at Future Media Concepts. But this is not a Final Cut Pro. This is not like the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Two different events for two different audiences. Some of the audiences overlap, as you can see. Let me pull that back up here. Let's look at the people that are going to be there. So you have Steve Martin's going to be there, of course. Jeff Greenberg, Justine, Photo Joseph, Mark Spencer. But all these people are not just Final Cut Pro people. So it's not a Final Cut Pro centric event like the FCPX Creative Summit yet has been, I mean. So here's the thing. Future Media Concepts has already said there is going to be a FCPX Creative Summit in 2020. They've already announced that's going to happen. I mean, could that change? Of course it could change, but that's what's right now at that point. So we were supposed to go to the Apple campus, into the Spaceship campus last time. June, July, August, September, we were supposed to go. We were confirmed we were going inside the Spaceship campus. Sometime in October, Apple pulled the plug on that. I presume Apple did. I don't think Future Media Concepts did. Apple pulled the plug and said, no, you're not going to go inside the campus. Go to this visitor's center. So we'll see if we go inside the campus this year once that's going to be announced. So Apple is not presenting at Vlog University. They're just moderating a panel. Will they be there? Sure, they'll be there. I mean, it's all about, most of the stuff is about Apple equipment, whether they use Final Cut Pro or not. Absolutely. Any more questions anybody has that I might be able to answer? I'm going to be headed out of here tomorrow. So tomorrow I am taking my exam to become a ham radio amateur radio operator. I'll be taking that exam tomorrow in Westminster, Maryland, on the east coast of the good old USA. I've been studying for it all week. I used to be a ham when I was in grade school. I'm pretty excited about it. It's a really interesting field to get into. I was a ham radio operator when I was a kid, way before the internet. And I used to listen after sun went down, shortwave broadcast from the BBC and stuff. There was no other way for us to get those broadcasts in those days. I still have a 1920s Hammerland shortwave radio in my garage. Haven't started it up for a long time, but I don't want it to sit there. I want to give it to somebody who can use it. Maybe I'll give it to somebody in a club. There's a local amateur radio club here in Westminster, Maryland, that I'm a part of now. So I'm going to take that test tomorrow. Lutz says, good luck. Close that. Yeah, I'm pretty good at studying for these things. When I teach a Final Cut Pro class, which I do sometimes in Washington or wherever, I teach for Future Media Concepts. I've taught for Boston University. I take weeks and weeks to prepare for that class because you got to be in front of the people 8 hours a day for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. You got to be talking to them for a long time. So I like to have all my notes ready to go. I have different ways I presented the class. And of course, I was teaching for the transition between Final Cut Pro 7 and Final Cut Pro 10. We had more classes with Final Cut Pro 7 than we had with Final Cut Pro 10. So listen, there's a couple things I want to tell you. Give feedback to Apple, to the Final Cut Pro teams. If you have something you want them to hear, go give them feedback. They have a full-time person who reads the feedback to the Final Cut Pro team. So here's the deal. Go to FCPX.tv. FCPX.tv. It's very easy to remember. All things Final Cut Pro 10. And right on the main page, send your request or feedback to the FCPX team here. Right on the main page. You don't have to remember the URL. It's also available in the Final Cut Pro app itself. Just click on that and you can give feedback. Apple reads every single feedback that comes in. They have a full-time person that reads that. They prioritize them. They put them in databases to see if there's certain requests that come through all the time, and if there's anything special they want to attend to. They read them. That doesn't mean they're going to respond to every single one. That's not the way it works. They're too big a corporation to do that. But they do read every single one. If you want Apple to know something, don't whine about it. Go to send the feedback in to the right to them directly. You know, that's the best way for them to get feedback. They read every single one. They keep a database of all the stuff that comes in there. So I'm going to head out of here today, everybody. Have a good weekend. February the 1st is tomorrow, and hopefully I'll have my amateur radio license tomorrow. That's one of the things I'm going to do in 2020. I wanted to get that. There's a couple of other things that I'm going to do that I've wanted to do for a while, and I've started one that I'll talk about at another point. Started a couple. Whether I go to NAB or not, we'll see. If there's no Final Cut Pro-centric events, I'm less likely to go. If there's pre-announced Final Cut Pro-centric events, I am much more likely to go. And then I need a sponsor as well. I haven't talked to my sponsors yet to see if they want to sponsor me going out there. And if I do go out there, I will be reporting live like I did from the summit and like I did from the NAB last year. I have I'm always updating my setup. I'm always updating what I'm going to be using for streaming. Always updating microphones. I'm always doing that, testing. So this year I got a really good setup. I used to take my GH5 and my iPhones. I don't anymore. But let me just turn that off there. Thanks for this live. You're more than welcome. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy everybody stopping out and checking things out. Don't forget to go to FinalCutProRadio.com for the latest podcasts. So the latest one is Robert Kruger from Kino. They got a great update. Before that, we had Chris Hawking of Command Post, and if you want to know more about what happened at the summit, I have part 1 and part 2 of the Post Summit. People talking about what happened as much as they can. But Robert Kruger is the latest one. And then Chris Hawking of Command Post was the one before that. FCPRadio.com. That's where you want to go. All right, everyone. I think I'm going to head out here today. And everybody at the Vlog University, have a good time out there. I've been podcasting for 15 years. I started in 2005, the spring of 2005, I believe. I started podcasting before Apple had podcasting in iTunes. Before. They came out in June. Steve Jobs came out in June and added podcast to the iTunes directory at that point. But I was listening to Adam Curry Daily Source Code from August of 2004, and I started listening, and then in March of 2005, I started my first podcast, and I've been doing it ever since. I've been doing it as long as anybody has that I know of, continuously. I've never stopped podcasting. I know a good bit about podcasting. I just enjoy it. It's like having your own radio station, and now with the FCPX TV Live, it's like having your own television station. But anyway, everyone, thanks for stopping out. We're going to be back as usual. You can go to YouTube, Richard Taylor TV. You can go to Periscope, Richard Taylor TV. Facebook, Richard Taylor TV. Instagram, Richard Taylor TV. Although I don't post there very often. They have a lot of restrictions on how long things can be. And of course, you can go to FCPRadio.com. That's another place you can go. It's the podcaster in iTunes. If you hear of anything going on, Final Cut Pro news-wise, send them my way. On Twitter, of course, Richard Taylor TV, FCP Radio 1 as well. And we'll talk about stuff about Final Cut Pro as we do on Twitter, back and forth, and on our Facebook groups. So, everyone, that is it for today. My name is Richard Taylor, and I will see you somewhere back here. So if you subscribe on YouTube, you follow me on Facebook or Periscope, you'll know whenever I go live. It happens at all times. Whenever I get the time and have the news to share, that's when I jump on here. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I will talk to you all later.